All right, if you're in the startup world, whether you're a founder or an early employee, there's one word that probably gives you a little bit of anxiety: dilution. It's this nagging feeling that your piece of the company, the thing you're working so hard for, is just shrinking. Well, today we're going to pull back the curtain on dilution and demystify it for good. And let's just start with the biggest fear right out of the gate. This question from Reddit really gets to the heart of it, doesn't it? The idea that after all the insane hours and the risk you took, your equity could just get watered down to almost nothing. It's a totally fair question, and it's exactly what we're here to tackle. So here's our game plan. We're going to start with the basics. What even is dilution? Then we'll get into the nitty-gritty of how it happens. After that, we'll talk about something I call the dilution paradox, which is super important. And finally, we'll get practical with strategies to manage it and the protections that are in place for everybody. Let's do this. All right, first things first, what exactly are we talking about when we use the word dilution? At its core, it's actually really simple math. When a company creates brand new shares out of thin air, maybe to raise money or to hire someone, the total number of shares in the company goes up. So while the number of shares you own stays the same, your percentage of that new, bigger total goes down. That's all it is. It's just a change in your ownership proportion. Now, you've probably heard the pie analogy, right? But a lot of people get it wrong. They think you have a pie, and when an investor comes along, you just cut out a slice and hand it over. Nope, that's not it. The right way to think about it is that you're using the investor's money, their ingredients, if you will, to bake a much, much bigger pie. Your original piece is still there, but now there's a new piece next to it that belongs to the investor. The whole thing just got larger. Let's just put some super simple numbers on this to make it crystal clear. Imagine you start a company and you own all 100 shares. That's 100% ownership. Then you need to raise some cash, so the company issues 25 new shares and sells them to an investor. Now how many total shares exist? 125. You didn't sell any of yours. You still have your 100. But what's 100 divided by 125? It's 80%. Your ownership percentage has been diluted. Okay, so that's what it is. Pretty straightforward. But how does it actually happen in the real world? What are the events that cause these new shares to pop into existence? Well, it usually comes down to one of these four things. You've got your priced equity rounds, things like convertible notes and safes, the all-important employee stock option pool, and something called warrants. Let's quickly go through each one. So a priced round is the classic fundraising scenario you see in movies. Your company and an investor agree on a valuation. Say your company is worth $10 million. Then you create and sell a chunk of new stock for cash. This is the most direct, clear-cut form of dilution. It's a straight-up trade, cash for equity. Now, things get a little trickier with convertible notes and safes. These are super common for early-stage startups. Think of them as a promise for future equity. It's not stock yet. It's more like a loan that will convert into stock during your next big funding round, and the investor usually gets a sweet deal, like a discount. So the key here is that you're not getting diluted today. You're basically just kicking the can down the road. The dilution is coming later. And of course, you can't build a world-changing company by yourself. You need to hire amazing people. And to attract and keep that top talent, you need an employee stock option pool, or an ESOP. This is just a block of equity that you set aside specifically for your team. But when you create that pool or add more shares to it later, those shares have to come from somewhere. And they dilute everybody: the founders, the investors, everyone. So I know this can all sound a little bit like a bummer, right? Like your ownership is constantly under attack. But this brings us to what I think is the single most important concept you have to grasp on your startup journey: the dilution paradox. Man, this quote just nails it. It's not about holding on to the highest percentage possible. The real goal is to create something of enormous value. I mean, seriously, would you rather own 100% of a pizza shop worth $100 grand or 10% of a company worth $100 million? The math is easy on that one. Dilution is often just the cost of building something huge. Let's go back to our math example and see how this actually works. Remember, your ownership dropped from 100% to 80%. That stings. But look at the numbers. The company got $500,000 in cash, which bumped its valuation up to $2.5 million. So what's your 80% worth now? It's worth $2 million, exactly what it was worth before. The value of your slice didn't shrink at all. In fact, that new cash is the fuel that's going to make your slice worth a whole lot more. Okay, so dilution is a necessary evil, or maybe not even evil, just a necessary part of the growth process. But that does not mean you should just let it happen without a plan. You've got to be strategic. So let's talk about some real-world ways you can manage this and stay in the driver's seat. But before we get into that, I want you to just look at this number, less than 0.05%. According to Lighter Capital, that's the percentage of U.S. startups that actually raise money from venture capitalists. Just let that sink in for a second. For almost every company out there, finding ways to grow without selling off equity isn't just a smart move, it's the only move. So what does that look like? Well, first, you bootstrap for as long as you possibly can. Use your own revenue to grow and hit important milestones. That makes your company more valuable when you do go to raise money. Second, look into non-dilutive options, like revenue-based financing or good old-fashioned bank loans. Third, when you do raise, don't get greedy. Take only the money you actually need to hit your next set of goals. And finally, remember that valuation isn't everything. Negotiate every single term on that term sheet. And, it's really important to realize that founders aren't the only ones worried about dilution. Your investors are thinking about it. Your employees are thinking about it. And so the whole system has come up with ways to protect everyone involved. Take investors, for example. They often include something called anti-dilution provisions to protect themselves if the company has a down round, meaning you have to raise money at a lower valuation than before. A full ratchet is like the investor's nuclear option. It's super protective for them, but can be absolutely brutal for founders. Weighted average is much more common and is, a more balanced, fair way to adjust things. Knowing the difference is a really, really big deal. And now, let's circle all the way back to that original Reddit question. Do early employees get screwed? The answer is they shouldn't. Good companies know that their first hires are incredibly valuable. So to keep them happy and motivated as dilution happens over the years, they'll issue refresh grants. These are brand new stock option grants given after an employee has been there for a while to make sure their total potential compensation keeps up with the company's growth. It's a key tool for retention. So at the end of the day, dilution isn't the boogeyman. It's a tool. It's the trade-off you make for the rocket fuel your company needs to take off. The real question you should be asking isn't, how do I avoid dilution? The question is, how do I use it wisely? Which leaves us with this final thought to chew on. Dilution is pretty much inevitable if you want massive growth, but is the plan you have for that growth actually worth the price?